My name is Clara Williams, and no one ever knew the truth about me. Not my neighbors, not my colleagues, and certainly not him. Every day I walked to work in a plain dress, carried an old handbag, and wore the same sneakers I bought 5 years ago. People saw me as that simple woman, polite, quiet, maybe a little naive. And I liked it that way. Because behind that simple smile was something no one imagined. I was the CEO of one of the fastest growing private investment firms in New York. My monthly income? $500,000. But I never told a soul. One afternoon, my coworker, Daniel, a charming man who loved showing off his wealth, came up to me and said, with that arrogant grin, "Clara, my wife and I are hosting a small dinner with my parents. You should come. I told them about you, the humble little woman I work with." I smiled softly. "That sounds lovely," I said. But inside, I already knew what kind of lovely he meant. That night, I looked at my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in years, I felt like testing people's hearts, not their eyes. I decided to go. Not as Clara, the businesswoman, but as Clara, the poor, quiet woman everyone underestimated. The evening arrived with cold wind and polished cars. Daniel had texted me the address, a mansion that stood like a symbol of pride itself, glowing with golden lights and laughter spilling from the inside. I wore a simple beige dress, no jewelry, my hair tied back. I carried a small purse that looked as if it had been through too many years of service. When I arrived at the door, Daniel's wife, Monica, opened it. Her smile froze the moment she saw me. "Oh, you made it," she said, her eyes quickly scanning my outfit. "Come in, I guess." Her tone was polite, but only on the surface. Inside, Daniel's parents were seated near the fireplace, sipping wine in crystal glasses. His father's gold watch reflected the firelight. His mother's eyes followed me like I didn't belong there. "This is Clara," Daniel said proudly, "the one I told you about, the sweetest, most simple soul in our office." I smiled and greeted them softly. His mother looked me up and down and forced a laugh. "Oh, Daniel, she reminds me of the maid we used to have in our old house." Daniel laughed. His wife joined him. I didn't. They invited me to sit at the table. It was long, covered with fine china and silver cutlery that glowed under the chandelier. I hesitated before sitting because everything felt like a test, not of manners, but of worth. Monica leaned toward me and said in a low voice, "I hope you don't mind, but we don't have simple food here. I'm not sure you'll like what we eat." I looked up, calm and smiling. "Don't worry," I said gently. "I've had simpler meals." Her smirk deepened. Daniel poured wine for everyone, except me. He didn't even ask. During dinner, the conversation turned toward luxury, vacations in Paris, cars that cost more than small houses. And then Daniel's father asked me the question I was expecting. "So, Clara, what do you do for a living? I heard you work under Daniel's management." I nodded. "Yes, I work with Daniel." His wife interrupted quickly. "She's in the clerical team, but she's so modest, you know? She doesn't dream big like others." They all chuckled. I smiled again. I could feel every eye judging me, every glance saying I didn't belong at that table. They didn't know I was silently owning more than what they'd ever seen in their lives. At one point, Daniel leaned back and said, "You know, Clara, not everyone fits in with our kind of lifestyle, but we like inviting people like you. Reminds us to stay humble." That sentence hit me harder than I thought it would. Not because it hurt, but because it revealed everything. To them, kindness was charity, not humanity. I smiled again, this time faintly, and I decided that the truth, my truth, would come soon. Dinner dragged on like a bad performance. Laughter too loud, smiles too fake, and silence every time I spoke. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as entertainment. When the plates were cleared, Monica announced, "Dessert's ready. Daniel, shoo Clara the garden while I set the table. She might like the flowers." Her tone was sweet, but her eyes were sharp, like she was sending me out to keep me away. Daniel stood up, hands in his pockets, and led me through the glass doors into their backyard. It was enormous, rows of roses, fountains, and marble benches. He said casually, "You know, Clara, people like you are rare. You don't try to be something you're not." I turned to him and asked, "People like me?" He smiled like a man who just said something kind. "Yeah, simple, quiet, grateful. You don't care about money or status. That's nice." I nodded slowly. Inside, I could feel something breaking. Not my heart, but the illusion. "You think I don't care about money?" I asked softly. He chuckled. "Come on, Clara. It's not an insult. You're humble. You could never live this kind of life." That was it. That was the moment I decided it was time. We walked back inside. The table was ready, desserts arranged like a royal display. Daniel's parents looked pleased. Monica sat gracefully, holding her wine like a trophy. I stood at the end of the table, smiling. "Thank you for dinner," I began. "It was unforgettable." Daniel grinned. "You're welcome. Not everyone gets a seat here." I took a breath. Then I said, calmly, "Actually, Daniel, I have to correct you on one thing." They all looked up confused. "You said I work under you. That's not true. I'm the founder of CW Holdings, the company that owns the firm you work for." Silence. Monica's glass froze midair. Daniel blinked like he didn't understand English for a second. "You mean," his father whispered, "you're the owner?" I nodded. "Yes. And Daniel, you were right about one thing. I am simple, by choice, because how people treat simplicity says more about them than their wealth ever could." The room was dead quiet. Daniel's mother set her fork down. Monica looked pale. Daniel tried to laugh it off. "Come on, Clara, this isn't funny." I took out my phone, opened a message, and showed him. It was an invitation from my board for the next executive meeting. His name was listed under Regional Director. His father looked stunned. "You're her boss's boss?" "Something like that," I said gently. "And tonight, you showed me exactly who you all are." I picked up my purse, still smiling softly. "Thank you for the dinner. It helped me make some decisions about my team's leadership." And I walked out. The night air was cold, but it felt clean. Every step I took away from that house, I felt lighter, freer. The same woman they thought was beneath them had just reminded them what real power looks like. The next morning, the city was slow to wake. Rain slid down the windows of my penthouse apartment, each drop catching the sunrise in shades of gold. I sat by the window, a cup of coffee in hand, replaying the dinner in my mind. Every fake smile, every careless insult, every assumption. I wasn't angry anymore. No, anger had burned out long ago, leaving behind something sharper: clarity. By 9 a.m., my phone began to buzz, first once, then over and over. Daniel, Monica, unknown number, probably his father. I didn't answer any of them. Then came the message from my assistant. "Miss Williams, the regional director, Daniel, and his team are waiting in the conference room. They look nervous." I smiled faintly and typed back, "I'll be there in 5 minutes." When I walked into the boardroom, every head turned. Daniel stood up immediately, his face pale, hands trembling slightly. Monica sat in the back corner, pretending to scroll her phone, though her screen was black. "Daniel?"
"Miss Williams," Daniel started, his voice small. "I just wanted to apologize for last night. We didn't realize." I raised a hand gently. "Daniel, stop. You don't need to explain. I understood perfectly well." He swallowed hard. "You know," I continued, walking slowly around the table, "people show their true selves not when they meet someone powerful, but when they think the person in front of them has nothing to offer." I stopped behind him, my voice calm but cutting. "Last night, you taught me something about my own company, about leadership, and now I have to act like one." He looked down, ashamed. After the meeting, I stepped out onto the terrace overlooking the skyline. The air smelled like wet concrete and fresh beginnings. I didn't fire him, not yet. Some lessons aren't about punishment, they're about witnessing your own shame. That was enough for now. Later that day, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Daniel's mother. Her voice trembled through the line. "Clara, I just wanted to say, we're so sorry. We didn't know who you were." I closed my eyes and said softly, "That's the problem. You only say sorry because you found out who I was." Silence. Then a quiet sob. "You're right," she whispered. "We judged you." "I know. And maybe someday you'll understand that kindness means more when you don't expect anything in return." I hang up gently. That night, I stood again by my window, city lights reflecting in my eyes. The woman in the glass wasn't the same one who'd walked into that dinner pretending to be poor. She looked stronger, calmer, wiser. I smiled to myself. They wanted to test a poor woman's worth. Instead, they revealed their own. The rain began again, soft, endless, cleansing. And somewhere in that sound, I felt peace. The days that followed were quiet. Not the kind of silence that hurts, but the kind that heals. Clara moved through her days differently now. She didn't wear her success like armor anymore. She didn't need to. People had always seen her as two versions: the soft woman who smiled too easily and the ruthless CEO who built empires. But both were her. Both had survived. One evening, she drove out of the city, past the towers of glass and steel, past the noise and power and pretense, until the skyline disappeared behind the fog. She stopped near a small hill where the wind carried the scent of rain and wildflowers. It was the same place her mother used to bring her when life felt heavy. Clara knelt on the damp grass, closed her eyes, and whispered a prayer. Not for vengeance, not for justice, just for peace. "Dear God," she whispered, voice trembling, "thank you for the pain that showed me who I am. Thank you for the humiliation that turned into strength. And thank you for letting me see that true wealth isn't in money, it's in knowing your own worth." Tears rolled down her cheeks, mixing with the rain. Each drop felt like forgiveness, for them, for herself, for everything. As she stood, a soft breeze passed through the trees, almost like an answer. And in that moment, she realized something she never had before. All her life, she'd prayed for recognition, but now she prayed for stillness. She didn't need anyone to see her anymore, because she finally saw herself. Back in the city, Daniel resigned quietly. His father's company lost a few key contracts, and whispers spread in the business world. But Clara didn't interfere. Life was taking care of that on its own. When her assistant asked her one morning, "Ma'am, what should I do about Mr. Daniel's final paperwork?" she smiled faintly. "Send it with a note," she said.
Tell him, I wish him peace. That night, Clara sat by her window again. Same coffee, same city lights, but a different heart. Her reflection in the glass looked softer, freer. No longer the woman who had to prove anything. No longer the one who hid behind simplicity or success. Just a woman who had survived cruelty with grace. She closed her eyes, whispered one last line, the same one that would echo through her life from that day forward. My prayers were never for revenge. They were for peace. And as the camera of life pulled away, through the window, over the city, into the night, the rain began again. Soft, eternal, like mercy itself.